So many people have businesses, and that's wonderful, but not many people have healthy businesses.
I've made this mistake. You hire because you just need somebody to take care of stuff. Are they hungry? Are they humble? And are they smart? So what we'll do is we'll do a lot of the tactical work in that staff meeting, the business at hand type things. But one of our values is all around that building others up, that champion attitude.
Hi, Rusty. How are you?
Hey, good to see you, Mark. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for coming on. I've been looking forward to our conversation.
Me too. Me too.
So many people have businesses, and that's wonderful, but not many people have healthy businesses. You have an entire lifetime of experience, not only building profitable companies, healthy companies. What's a healthy company?
You said entire lifetime. Now, I'm not that old. Come on, Mark. That was a little painful, but yeah, it's interesting that we get to work with companies all around the country, United States. And I'd say there's three things that I see in healthy companies. A lot of times it's that having that coach or that mentor come along beside the leader so they know they're not doing it alone. The second is just having a cheerleader, somebody to cheer you on when things are tough and to celebrate when things are really going well. And the third, and I think what we'll dive in today, is community. Man, just having that supportive community around you. And it's finding those healthy communities that can just make or break businesses. And so find those businesses that are doing well, you'll often see just a healthy community around them.
That's wonderful but I also have so many questions because community is something that is talked about a lot. But having been in this industry, and I'm sure you having been in this industry for so long, it's like a word that just gets used, right? People use that word for their benefit to paint themselves in a certain picture. What does it take to really build a true community? And what does that even mean?
Yeah, no, that's great question. And I would say a lot of times communities, those that work well, function well, have a set of rules, a set of core values, you might say, because without some leading principles, boy, the community can be chaos. And so I'd say those communities, those groups of people with like-minded vision, like-minded direction, all the missional things, having that core value that can help drive them, keep them in the lines so that everybody's heading in the right direction. That's, again, I would say that's part of that definition of community.
When I think about core values, a lot of companies, they have their mission statement and they have their values outlined there. Employees get to know about it. Some of them get to read about it, but nobody truly believes in them. So how do we create that belief system in our employees so they are not just big empty words, but things that they actually believe in?
Yeah, I just came across my business plan, Mark, from 25 years ago. And I scratched out some aspirational mission, vision, values. And what's fascinating is some of the core makeup of the core values that I scratched out 25 years ago, it actually is infiltrated in what we're doing today and what we've defined as our core values as a business. And probably about year 10 in our business, we got serious and wrote those out in a little more formal process, stuck them on the shelf to collect dust, and thought, hey, we have our core values written out. And so many companies do that. It's just, let's come up with these fancy words. And now we've done that exercise. Let's get back to work. And it was probably 5 years after that exercise that we dusted those off and thought, boy, where are we at on this process? And what's really neat is 5 years later, all those values that we had written down, we were living those values. And part of that was because we had defined them. We had put some effort into saying, this is what we're aspiring to be. And do we get it always right? Absolutely not. But these are our aspirational values that we always want to operate by.
That's so interesting because, like you said, you don't get to have a community and build a company like this accidentally. You actually took time to not only just outline the values, but come back to it over and over again and integrate that into the business. My question to you is a devil's advocate question. Where did you have the time? So many entrepreneurs are just chasing the money and trying to make ends meet, and they're focused on making that extra revenue and going 2x and 3x. How did you find time and prioritize this over just going after money?
Yeah. I was just having lunch with an entrepreneur. He's been in business about 9 years now. And he was talking about a very similar question is, oh my goodness, I'm just trying to keep up. Just the hamster wheel is just going. And I think a lot of businesses operate that way. And that's fine if that's all they want to do is stay in that hamster wheel. But it is taking that intentionality or putting intentionality around that to step out and say, I need to work on this. I need to cast some vision of where we want to be in 3 years. And we don't want to be on that same wheel 3 years, 10 years, however many years down the road. So it is very intentional. And so for our team, we just built that into some of our weekly cadence, our weekly staff meetings. We would take time out of our meetings, probably 30 minutes a week, to just say, this is intentional time. We're going to work on community culture type action. And my goodness, Mark, we've been doing that now for probably 10 years in our staff meetings.
What does that look like? Can you give a small example?
I would love to. Yeah. So what we'll do is we'll do a lot of the tactical work in that staff meeting, the business at hand type things. But one of our values is all around that building others up, that champion attitude. And one of the exercises we do is just simply go around the room, and we're in a virtual model. So go around the Zoom room and do weekly shout outs. Hey, Mark knocked it out of the park this week doing this project, or I got this call from this client about what Mark was doing. So that's part of that. But the second half of our meeting, we'll actually bring in an outside speaker to talk on video to talk about different aspects of our core values. And so one of ours right now is actually around community and what it looks like to build a healthy community, and just some examples. And so we heard from a lady named Liz Bohannon, which is an outstanding speaker, author, and she just talked about just the value, boy, when you're going through those high points, celebration times together, but boy, sometimes when you're going through those really tough challenges, having a community to lean on.
No, it's so interesting, right? Because I'm thinking from the perspective of two different companies, right?
Yeah.
If somebody's listening to this and they're starting a company,
Yeah.
this is the best conversation that they can listen to, because you're literally laying down the foundation upon which this business has to be built. Because without those core values, you won't have a community. Without a community, you won't have dedicated employees. And without dedicated employees who are doing what they need to be done, you don't have a business. But I'm also thinking from the perspective of an entrepreneur who's listening to this, whose business is standing, but it's like a ship that has a lot of duct tape on it. Things haven't gone smoothly, and maybe there's mistrust amongst employees, or employee morale is low. Things that happen in most companies, like the employees are just there because they need a job, right?
Right.
Being who you are and being how intentional you are, if you were consulting for a company like that, where things have just not been going well, what are some things you would do to be able to bring that community sense back into it?
Yeah, I think your first comment about if you were consulting with them, and I think for so many entrepreneurs or those small businesses or just these that are out of control, it is sometimes stepping out of your maybe community, your business, and getting that outside perspective, and going back to where we started this conversation, a coach or a mentor to just come along the side and get that outside perspective that, man, is so needed when you're in those unhealthy communities. And part of that could be too, are the right people within a team. Sometimes I've made this mistake. You hire because you just need somebody to take care of stuff, and you realize quickly that that may not have been the best reason to hire or the best fit for long term. And so part of that could be evaluating your team. Is everybody on the same page? Do you have a vision that people are in, a mission that people are going towards, or is it just all helter skelter? And so I think those are just a few things. But starting by asking questions, I would say, if I would an outside consultant or coach coming in, is just listening to understand what the challenges are, and maybe just capturing or tackling those one by one as you go along.
A lot of these companies, I've had the honor and privilege for working with many of them as a coach and a consultant. And the most prevalent problem is lack of trust. And it's either lack of trust towards management or lack of trust within each other.
Yeah.
How do we go about building trust or fixing this problem if you noticed, this is not good? What are some things you recommend?
Yeah, there's a really good book around this called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. And he actually draws out a kind of a pyramid, and the foundation of this pyramid is lack of trust. And you can't build a pyramid if that's your foundation. And so what you just described, is that would be a great resource for the folks that are listening to this to dive into that book. But again, it could be listening to your team and making sure, again, you have the right people on the bus. Sometimes we build these communities and we forget that foundation, and boy, I know we're trying to figure out what's going on. That's part of the issue. So hiring right would probably be a first start. And are things to the point where they're past the trust, we just can't fix it? Or there's some things internally that could be rectified? Sometimes it's communication. Are they communicating clearly? Are they listening? So I'm curious, we'll flip the script real quick. Is there anything from your standpoint you've seen work well in rebuilding trust?
A lot of times it starts with getting rid of the bad apples.
Yeah. Yeah.
because it is a
Yeah.
few rotten apples
Yeah.
that unfortunately poison the whole
Yeah.
bushel.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe it's because of their personality. Maybe unfortunate things
Yeah.
happen to them, but
Yeah.
negativity breeds negativity. And oftentimes, as a consultant, I have to be able to find out who is doing that. And then being able to separate that one individual and their temperament versus the remainder of them. And if
Yeah.
there's a big difference, like everybody else collectively is like a 4 unhappy on a level of 10.
Yeah.
This person is a 9. And when this person is with everybody, everybody goes up to a 6. Well,
Yes.
it's
Yes.
obvious what we need to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
We call those thoroughbreds and donkeys. Okay. And your thoroughbreds don't want to hang out with your donkeys.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. So it's, for me, often that's where it starts. And then
Yeah.
be able to, but that's almost the second step that happens immediately is when that
Yeah.
person is gotten rid of, the rest of the people think, oh, wait, look, he just got fired or she just got fired because she had a bad attitude. And that instills
Sure.
fear. The next
Yeah.
step for me is to now communicate with them. The
Yeah.
person wasn't just fired because of this reason. There is no reason to be afraid that you have to
Yeah.
act a certain way or else you'll just lose your job. We're trying to make things better.
Yes, yes, I love that. And leadership communication is so critical. And assumptions and worries and all those things can creep in if the leader's not communicating. So that is so critical. Yeah, I appreciate your example there.
Yeah, yeah. And I want to hear about your hiring strategy as well, because you
Yeah.
talked a lot about hiring the right person and have
Mm,
someone who has done this for your company and helped with other companies.
yeah.
What are some things that one should ought to look out for as must-haves? And then what are some things that are red flags? If you
Yeah.
can lay that
Yeah.
out.
Yes. Yeah. One of the things that have been really helpful in our process is to put our core values out on our website. And so when you have an applicant that applies for a role with your company, when they comment on those and they resonate with those, boy, that's a nice check mark because they've taken time to do some research. They've taken time to say, oh, I align with your values right off the bat. That it's when you get those applicants that are, now tell me, what am I applying for? Or how much does this pay? How much time do I get off? Those are definitely the easy red flags. The things though, Mark, I would say 3 attributes we look for in every hire is, are they hungry? Are they humble? And are they smart? And again, this is another Patrick Lencioni book, The Ideal Team Player, but he talks about, are they hungry? Do they want to work? And you've probably worked with people that are like, I'm just showing up to clock in and clock out. So I want somebody that really wants to work and do serve the others well. And then, so that's hungry. Humble, is it all about me or is it about we? And so am I a team player or do I need all the accolades? And for our group, we need we's. And we're looking for those team players. And we'll have different questions or tell me about a story where you were on a team. What role did you play? And you can often hear the I did this versus the we did this. And so that's one. And the last one is smart, people smart. Are they good communicators? Are they active listeners? And are they smart reading the room? And so those are the 3 attributes that are so critical. Those are just the baseline, get you into the door type assessments we're doing.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. Hungry, humble, and smart. It's a
Yes,
very
yes.
3 good attributes to have. So one of the things that I notice with a lot of companies is that sometimes they are able to attract good talent, people who are hungry, people who want to work. But sometimes because of the work environment or surrounding things, the employee's hunger goes away. And
Yes.
oftentimes,
Yeah.
a lot of businesses face this. The employee is just there and is a great employee, but doesn't show initiative.
Yeah.
When you assign them a task, they'll get it done. But
Mhm.
every small business owner who's running a business has so many tasks going on. You need somebody who shows initiative. Do you have any methods that you have utilized that kind of draws that out of people?
Yeah, there's definitely some measurement tools that we see a lot of companies use. KRAs, those key result actions or attributes, those can be really helpful. Another tool that we've implemented is what's called success statements. Mark, for your role, these are the 5 things that we come up together. That means you're successful in this role. And we'll red, yellow, green those on a regular basis. And so we'll meet on a regular basis. And hey, did you start your podcast on time? Did the recording work? Did all the things that might be around your particular role? That can be helpful, keeping people challenged. I think the other thing too, even going back to core values, and our very first core value is growth. And so we'll red, yellow, green how Mark is doing on growth this period. So what are you doing from a growth standpoint? I've been reading these books. I've been doing this podcast. I've been working out. So what are those growth areas? But it is putting those measurements, I think, can be helpful to keep people working towards a goal. And you can also weed out those that aren't hungry fairly quickly doing something like that.
Yeah. I have to tell you, Rusty, I've never heard of this one before. And it's actually brilliant. And
Mm.
as you were saying it, I thought, why aren't people doing it daily? Because most
Mm.
people's employee reviews, success factors, all those things happens at the end of the year, once a year.
Yes,
Right?
yes.
At the
Yeah.
beginning of the year, you say, these are all the wonderful things I will do. And then the entire year goes by. And at the end of the year, you say, I didn't do that.
Yes. You missed it. You missed it.
You know?
Yes.
But
Yeah.
now I'm very curious. So when you say on a daily basis, do you mean daily as in frequency, like every 2 weeks or something, or do you mean literal daily?
Yeah, from a measurement standpoint, actually red, yellow, green, some of the companies we work with actually will do that weekly. That's probably the most frequent. I don't know that they're doing it daily, but if you're thinking about it, at the end of the week, I need to report this, then that means you're going to be thinking about it or applying it daily. But we'll typically see weekly or monthly is probably the norm. We'll have some that do it quarterly, but yeah, you're right. Annually, man, I hate to go back and say, Mark, you screwed up 11 months ago. And I'm like, why didn't you tell me then? And so that's been a really good tool exercise to use that we see a lot of our companies using.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. How do you go about having this conversation with the employee on a weekly basis? Because while this is good for the business, if some might feel a little attacked or threatened because I'm constantly being evaluated, which will go against the community trust that we're building.
Yeah.
Oh, I've been struggling. Rusty's not understanding. Rusty's meeting with me every week. He's giving me reds on everything and yellows on everything. I think he's working on his way to just get me fired down the line. So
Sure.
I'm just role playing like this is what happens,
Yeah.
right? So how do you go about this conversation so it's not having the unintended effect?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that is so important. And I would say if trust is broken, don't just jam these in to fix the trust issue. There's probably something else. This is really a tool to build once trust is, I would say, you have a bit of a foundation there. The other thing too, on these success statements, if you're using that tool, those are put together. Those aren't business owner or manager demanding, hey, you have to do this. A lot of times it's, hey, what would be successful for your role? I want to hear your input. And when you get together, it's not the boss or the manager grading you. A lot of times it's self-graded. Hey, tell me, how are you doing this week on this area? And so really to be more of a come along beside, how can I help you be more successful in your role versus you're not doing it right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Just like a leadership, proper leadership, as opposed to
Imagine that.
as opposed to a master berating a servant.
That's
It's
right.
like which is what most
Yeah.
companies and organizations are like. The bigger
Yeah.
the company, the worse the problem, right?
Here's what's really fun, Mark, in those conversations is often they can be very affirming to the team member.
Yeah.
Hey, here's an area that it was yellow last period. And boy, I've really been working on this. And here's why I think it's green. And the supervisor I see that too. Boy, great job there. So I think we can look at it negative, but we can also say, here's some ways I want to grow in my role. But it's definitely not the only thing you do, but it's definitely a great tool to add to the list.
So can you share? I know you shared growth as one of the success tricks, right?
Yeah.
What are some others that you have companies use?
Yeah. And so our core values, I think that's what you're asking here, spells out the word grace, GRACE. So we talked about growth. The second one is called represent the client. We want to make sure we're representing who we're working for as if we were part of their company or what's best for them. And so represent the client is the second one. Accountability. And that may sound just basic for accounting type firms like ours, but accountability. We want to make sure that leadership and this goes up to the CEO, which is me in this case, but the things I do day in, day out, I'm being accountable to our team because I want to make sure that integrity is, top of the list here. So accountability. And then C is champion attitude. And man, if you don't show up with a good attitude or if you're constantly going around the bad attitude, this job's going to get old real quick. And so when you're talking about, how do you keep people motivated? Part of it is, man, we expect you to be up and working well. Absolutely, you'll have bad days periodically, but that should not be the norm. So champion attitude is that one. And then the last one is what we call eternal impact. Man, Mark, the things we do for our clients, we want to make sure we're impacting not only their day-to-day stuff, but we want to make sure that we're seeing lives changed in the work that we're doing. And it could be families are healthier, it could be financials are healthier, it could be they're setting up some long-term legacy kind of stuff through their business that they're doing. So eternal impact is our third. And that spells out our last one. That spells out the word grace.
Yeah. No, I love it. I love it. And especially for an accounting firm, you want a company that is looking out for you. You want the
Yes,
company that
yes.
is representing you. So the
Yeah.
values make perfect sense. It
Yeah.
wasn't just ask ChatGPT. What are some five most commonly used values?
Integrity. Yes, absolutely.
I love it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's talk about growth specifically. Is it
Yeah.
how are you measuring the growth of the individual?
Yeah. And part of that's the individual. We get their input from them. So for some of our team, their growth may, hey, I want to try to read 3 books this quarter. Hey, great. And how are you doing on that book? What are you reading? Tell me more about that. Or could be growth in, I want to spend more time with my family or more intentional time with my family. How are you doing on that? So really driven by the team member and and of course that needs to align with the health of the company. But boy, if you can have healthy growth from a team member, man, a lot of times that just aligns just flows right into the business as well.
I love it. And these values are not only good for the company, of course, but for the individual, like you laid out, because the company is just made of a bunch of individuals who are really dedicated and doing the work, right? So if
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
happy and they are growing, there is no
Yeah.
reason for them to not stick around and
Yeah.
put their best in.
Yeah.
In today's world where so many companies employees are telecommuting, zooming, right,
Yeah.
the complexities of maintaining that relationship, complexities of continuing to build that connection or keep that connection is
Yes.
harder, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very easy when we are in a big office and people are walking through the door and we can see how their attitude is. It's very difficult when it's behind a computer screen and they're just coming for a team meeting for an hour of the day and
Yeah.
we don't know what we're doing 7 of those other hours.
Yeah.
What are some things that you would recommend our listeners to be able to get a handle on this? Because telecommuting is very new and nobody really has a grasp on this.
Yeah. Yeah. We've watched different companies do this really well and some not so well. And it's been interesting as these large companies are struggling with what you just described and calling people back to the office, thinking that's going to fix it. I don't know that it will. The culture could be broken and just bringing everybody into a room may cause more chaos. But 3 things we found that really are helpful. One is invest in your team weekly. And so give you an example. We are in a totally virtual environment for our company. And so what that looks like, we've already talked a little bit about, but doing weekly shout outs for our team members. And a lot of times it'll just be other team members telling people, how well they've done that week or something they've done. That's one, but then daily check-ins have been a really good. We implemented that during COVID and just having almost a buddy system where you check in with somebody. Hey, how are you doing today? And what are you working on? And how can I be of help? And that, I'll tell you, that has been amazing. I had no what that would do in the telecommuting or in the virtual world, but that's been just really neat to see relationships developed. The second thing we've done that we've seen others do and brought on is incorporating fun and serving opportunities together. And you're thinking, how in the world do you do a serving opportunity on a one of the things we've done recently is a 6K. So go out and run 6K and raise money for World Vision. And that they provide clean water in some different areas. What's neat is, Mark, you can run from where you're at. I could run from where I'm at. We don't have to necessarily be physically together, but you could shoot me a picture of you out with your family doing your thing. And just things like that can be a lot of really neat to team building. And then we're incorporating fun. We had a virtual Christmas party that, oh my goodness, knocked out. It would rival any in-person. I just thought we've got some really great staff that are creatives on that, but together at least quarterly just to have some type of fun event on Zoom. And then the last thing I'll mention that I think really brings us all together is we'll do in-person events. And we'll actually fly everybody in to Kansas City, where our home base is, and we'll do a 3-day event. And what's really neat is all those little virtual people that are like, oh, I'm all by myself. It's like an old high school reunion, Mark. Everybody's so excited to get together and they know each other. And it doesn't have to be awkward. We don't, we need to make sure we're incorporating, we're investing, we're incorporating, and we're doing in-person stuff.
No, I really like that, especially the flying everybody in for a 3 day,
Yes.
the ability to be able to spend time with each other. That's deep connections. So
Absolutely.
no, I love it. I love it. Looking at you, reading about you, talking to you, you talked about the importance of mentorship or having that coach guide be by your guide. And today you're lucky. We are all lucky that some of us are in a position where we can coach others. Those who you are coaching are incredibly lucky because they're learning from your mistakes, right? And they're learning from somebody who is a good person, right? Who is truly invested in them. But back in the day, maybe Rusty, when we were all young, right? We needed coaches and we needed mentors.
Yeah.
How did you go about finding a coach, finding a mentor for yourself? What were the criteria that you looked for when you were connecting with other leaders?
Yeah. I might even say ever outgrow that stage, meaning I still have influencers and coaches for me. So maybe I'm just not old enough to not have one, but I think there's part of that growth going back to our core values, growth, man. That's where some of that comes from, is those mentors. Yeah. So I think sometimes it's not a one size fits all. So I know you're into bodybuilding, I believe, and really enjoy that. You may have a mentor for that. That may be a different mentor than a business mentor or a family mentor. And so I think we want to be open to, man, what is this person really good at and what can I learn from them? I was talking to a friend of mine the other day that he was so kind. He goes, "You've always been a mentor for me." And I'm like, wow, I wish I'd have known that. I would have treated this differently. And I think sometimes as a mentee, we're maybe doing our mentors a disservice when we get mentored from a distance or in secret. So sometimes it's being bold enough to say, hey, would you mentor me? And here's how I'd like to be mentored, or here's what I want to be mentored in. And so just that clear communication, that's where I've seen I'd say the most intentionality around growth and just really, yeah, I know for me, that's been extremely helpful when I've had those clear, define the relationship, mentor-mentee relationships.
Yeah, and that's so important that you laid it out like that, being able to just have an open conversation with somebody and just asking them straight out, would you please mentor me? And here's how I would like to be mentored.
Yes.
Because whenever the conversation of coaching and mentorship comes up, almost always do people think that, oh, I have to pay somebody to get a coach, and I don't have
Yeah.
the money to do that.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
idea that there are everyday people around us who could possibly teach us something, right? I think that's where the power lies.
Yes, absolutely. I love that because I think and some mentors do charge. So I've paid a few along the way, but I love that. Yeah, sometimes it is those everyday, those people we see at work or at church or different places of influence at church. Man, could I just spend time with you? And most of the time, they're going to say yes. Now, sometimes they won't, but I think it's being clear again that here's what I'm asking of you. And would you consider spending once a month, getting together once a week, whatever the define is? I had one leader one time reach out and say, would you mentor me? And I'm like, what do you want to, what does this look like? And oh, I don't know, but would you mentor me? I'm like, no, because there's no clarity around that. So come back when you have clarity. I haven't heard from them since. So there you go. That helps define the relationship.
Absolutely, absolutely. If somebody doesn't have a very clear goal of what they want, they're never going to attain that goal, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love it. So
Yeah.
you are the CEO of Fulling Management and Accounting. Tell us
Yes.
a little bit about your company.
Yeah, yeah. Launched Fulling, man, almost 25 years ago now. And we provide CFO services, accounting services, and bookkeeping to just help small businesses around the country with those areas. And we love working with companies, those $1 million to $20 million a year type companies that are using things like books and just really helping them get clarity, grow their profits, and just gain that peace of mind.
That's wonderful. It is evident how your company probably operates and serves your customers just based on how you are. You come off as an open, honest, straightforward guy who has values, something that most people don't have these days, and you abide by them, and you are always making sure you are aligned with them, and you run a team and you run a company. It's full of people that care about each other, and how much you care about them is also evident from just talking to you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really an honor and privilege to have you on the show. Anything else that you would like to add for the listeners?
Oh, you said any last minute? Cut off there. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is don't do it alone. Sometimes go back to our start of our conversation, but community is so important. And whether commuting, whether you're just feeling alone in a crowded office environment, finding that coach, that cheerleader, that community, it's so vital. And yeah, I would encourage you that today, man, love to connect. If people want to reach out, I actually set up a personal website just talking about mentoring and lessons I've learned. And you can go out to rustyfulling.com, check out some of those lessons I've gotten to learn from different leaders and so forth over the year. And in our company website, fullingmanagement.com, you can check it out. I'm sure you'll have it in the notes. But hey, man, thanks, Mark. I love what you're doing and just enamored by, man, just the work that you've accomplished and you're still accomplishing. So great job, man.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I will love to have you on the show again, and I'll talk
You
to
bet.
you.